This is the SolidWorks tutorial on Lesson 1 Parts. So we'll start SolidWorks. And it should start like this. If it starts with a totally white blank screen, just hit a little home icon, and then tutorials and parts, that one. Okay, so this is a part we'll be making, and it's got extrusions, it's got a boss feature, a cut, fillets, and it also has a shell feature. Okay, so next step, click New, and we're going to select a part, OK, and it asks us to save it. We'll call this Tutor 1. And I've already done this once, so this is Tutor 1A. Okay, the first thing we do is create an extruded base. Before I get into that, in terms of your setup here, if you don't have this pinned out right here, I usually do that. This is the heads-up view toolbar. We'll be using that a lot. This is the feature tree, the design tree. So there's the name of your part, and everything we do is going to be added here. And of course, we're going to be going between the sketch and the features toolbar. So it asks us to do extrude a rectangle. If you already know how to do this, feel free to do that without following their instructions. You know, just go right to extruded base. That's good practice, but I'll follow the instructions. Okay, so extruded. It asks us to click on the front plane. I'm just going to do that so I'm consistent with the rest of their instructions, but you can click on any plane to make a part. Front plane, and now we're set to that one. Rectangles using corners. Okay, so you see the little blue, orange dot. That means it's locked on to the origin. And we'll just make any size rectangle. You can release by clicking the button on the tool you're using, press escape, that's how I usually do it, or press enter. Okay, enter or escape. Next, now we're selecting, it asks us to hit that on the standard toolbar, but it is already selected. So we're going to dimension this rectangle. So I clicked Smart Dimension, and that is asked to be 120. So now I'm hitting enter instead of the green check, but it's fine to do either. It's ready to dimension another one with the mouse pointer looking like that, so I can click right there on that one. 120, enter. Now I've got my rectangle, and that's what it asks to do. Zoom to fit is often useful, that little button, or the F key. That fills the screen with it. You notice all the lines are black. That means they're fully defined. If you have blue lines, then something's not dimensioned yet. Now we're going to extrude it. So we get out of the dimension. We hit the exit sketch to get out of this. And that puts us back into the boss extrude, or base or boss extrude. And now we need to set some conditions. So first thing is the type of extrusion, or how far to go. The blind means it will just go a distance, and it won't account for any other features in the model. Often you'll do things like to a surface or mid-plane. Those are often helpful for more complex parts, but this one's just blind. And they want a depth of 30. So 30, enter. And check. Okay, it asks for Z for zooming in and out, or Shift Z, zooming in, Z for zoom out. Of course, the wheel does the same thing. The mouse wheel. Add the base. Okay, so now we're going to add a boss on this base. So in terminology, usually you start with a base, and then anything that sticks out from that is called a boss. So a boss is just something that sticks out from a part. Okay, extruded boss base. Now it's asking us for a plane that we want to make our sketch on. So we're going to use the front plane. Actually, they click the plane first. It doesn't really matter whether you click the boss first or the plane first, as long as you click both. And it asks for the normal to, so that's in the standard toolbar. That's right up here. Since it knows that we are working on this plane already, that's normal to, it's going to reorient the view so we're looking straight at it. Okay, and you don't have to do this. You can certainly sketch in an isometric view, but it's often more helpful to do it this way. Circle. So they're suggesting that we put the circle near the center and then make our circle. I'll show you an alternate way. It's a little slicker. So you know that right now it doesn't know where the center is, but if I hover my mouse there, it finds the midpoint, and if I drag down, it knows to draw an inference line. Hover here, midpoint, inference line. And if I now hang out in the middle, it'll draw both inference lines. And the little symbol in white there to the right of the pencil means that this point is going to be formed by both of those inference lines. So you're guaranteed that it will be in the middle. So I'm going to click it here. And it doesn't matter how big you make it, because we're going to dimension it. Okay. So we've made our circle. We can either get the green check, or we can hit enter, or probably escape. And now we want to dimension this. Smart dimension. And so here's how you dimension circles. This can be a little confusing. Circles are normally dimensioned. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. With the number outside the part at some kind of an angle. So that would be fine. That would be fine. Circles are not usually dimensioned like that. It's not wrong or like that, but this would be the standard. Okay, and 70 is the dimension, and I'm hitting enter. Okay, and we can hit the green check or probably enter again. All right. Now, since we put it in the middle, we shouldn't have to do this step, but I'll go through it so you see how it works. Smart dimension. You have a couple options how you can dimension the location there. You could click this top line. Now, if you click that, you might be confused because it thinks that you're dimensioning the length of that line. But if you also then immediately or next click the center, now it knows that you wanted to dimension from that line to the center. I'm going to hit escape because I want to show you a different way. And escape again. So if I click the point there, and then the point there, and then drag over here, now it's from point to point. So they're both fine ways to do it. 60, and that's already correct, so I'm just going to enter. And I'm also going to, so you know that it's ready for making a dimension because the mouse pointer has that little dimension symbol on it. So I'm going to do this the second way. Orange, orange, 60. And enter or green check. Okay, so now we have it dimensioned. And since it's in the middle, it didn't matter whether you did from that point or from the origin. And we're done with that sketch, so we can exit it. And that kicks us back to the Boss Extrude Feature Manager. And now we have to tell it what we want this boss to look like. So it tells us to go to the trimetric view. You can access that here, oops, which is there. And you notice there's a bunch. Isometric, don't worry about which one. It really doesn't matter for our purposes. You can also, of course, click the middle mouse button and get any kind of angle you want there. Let's see. So this one is a blind for in condition and a depth of 25. So blind 25. Enter. and check. Okay, and so there's boss extrude for the base, and there's boss extrude for the boss. Okay, now we're going to make a hole down the hole, down the center of the part, and you can see that the wall thickness of this remaining piece is going to be 10. So we'll learn how to do that kind of a dimension. Okay, so now we're making a cut. So this is an extrusion, but it's a cut instead of a feature, or a boss rather. I click that, and now it wants to know, what face do you want to sketch on? Well, that's the face I want. Click there. It suggests we use the normal 2. And there we are. Click the circle. And once again, it doesn't know where the center is because we haven't told it what we're interested in. If I hover my mouse around the edge, now it knows I'm interested in that circle and its center. And sure enough, there it is there. So notice when the mouse approaches the middle, see the little green, yellow symbol to the bottom right? That indicates that it will lock on to that middle point. Even if you're not exactly on the middle point with your mouse pointer, it's going to lock onto the center. So click there. And for size, it's going to end up being 50. I find it preferable actually to not try to hit it exactly at 50, and I'll show you why. So click it there, and then we're going to dimension that. And type in 50. The reason I don't like to manually do it is that once I hit this 50, I can see the circle change, and that confirms to me that it understood the command. Very minor deal. Either way is fine. Okay, and we're done with the dimension, and we're ready to exit the sketch. Okay, and let's see. Now it's saying to go back to trimetric, so let's do that. So there's the cut. Now this is a different kind of cut. We have some different end conditions. In Property Manager, under Direction 1, set end condition to through all. So here we have blind, we have through all. This means that, so blind will just go a distance. Through all means it's going to go through the entire part, and that's often what you want. It's also sometimes helpful to go to next, meaning the next plane that it sees, or again, mid-plane is sometimes helpful. So through all, and now you don't have to specify a depth because it's the whole thing. And check. You can always hit enter for check. And now you see we have a hole through the middle of the part, and that wall thickness is 10 millimeters from there to there. Okay, now we're adding fillets. So they want a 5 millimeter radius fillet. So this is a rounding of the edge. Same thing, or radius. Fillet and radius are kind of synonymous. And it's a rounding of the edge for between the base and the boss. So that would be that feature right there. The corners of the base, that's referring to that. And the front perimeter of the base, that's referring to this here. Now it has a different radius, 1.5 millimeters, for the top edges of the boss and the hole. That would be that edge and that edge. Okay, so let's do this. So we click the fillet command, that's right here. And we have a slightly different version than what they said. Constant size is not one of our options, so that's fine, just ignore it. It says select the front face of the base. So I'm clicking there. And you can see once I select that front face, it has interpreted that to find all edges that are on that face. And sure enough, those are the edges we want to do. We want a 5 millimeter radius there, so I'm going to go to there and click 5. You can see in the blue box is always important. That's what has been selected to fillet. or the things that are associated with that. Okay. Let's see, we're going to also select the 4 edges at the corners of the base. So that would be here, and here, and you don't hold shift or control for these. It's expecting just you to keep adding them. Now I'm using the middle mouse button to reorient the part. There, and there. And you can see we have face 1 and we have 4 edges. Okay. Let's see, and that's good. And now we hit our check, and we'll see what it really looks like. Okay. Yours might not look exactly like that, depending on your display style. See, I have shaded with edges, and there's shaded. So if yours look like that, that's all the difference that it is. Okay, now we're going to create the fillets on the boss. So that's this one and this one. So now we'll click fillet again. And the radius is supposed to be 1.5 for this one. So we'll enter that, 1.5, enter. The blue box means it's looking for where you want it. If I click that face right there, it found them, and they give some different instructions here. I think this is for the older version, the right click, because that did not work when I practiced it. And this little guy, I don't think I got that pop-up when I practiced it, but this works just fine now. So in the new version, that's the way to do it. They suggest using zoom to selection on the view toolbar. And let's see, we don't exactly have that one here because the view toolbar is not exactly shown. That would be the closest. You would click and drag to come in on that. Not that important, of course. I click the check, and now we're going to shell the part. So I'm going to zoom out. You can just say F, that's the best way. Click to get rid of it, now F. So a shell means that we're hollowing out the part. Right now it's solid, and of course that's a lot of material. And so if you want to save cost and weight, we can make it a hollow part and still have the same shape and often just as good of a function and lighter. So this is going to be a 2 millimeter thick shell throughout. So let's see how to do this. They suggest using rotate view, but I think it's easiest just to use the middle mouse button. Sometimes it can take some practice to get used to how to use that middle mouse button, and your part can kind of get into weird orientations like this and you don't know how to fix it. So here's a little trick. If you're in that orientation, you want to make it square using the middle mouse. Okay, click down with the middle mouse, and then watch what happens when I just take the mouse and I go in a little circle. See how it's rotating the part on me? And now let me rotate in another circle in the other way. Now it's rotating back. So that's something that your hand will get used to doing intuitively to get the part to be the orientation you want. Alternatively, you can just hit F, and that will put it in the good view as well. Okay, so back to where we were. Select on the standard toolbar, it's already selected. Select the back face. So they're having us click the face. In general, on these commands, you can either click the command first and then the face you're working on or that it needs, or you can click the face first and then the command. In most cases, it doesn't matter. Okay, so here's the shell command. And parameters, we want to set the thickness to 2. So that's right here, 2, enter. Okay, now you might be thinking, well, how does it know to make the shell just by clicking that back face? The logic here is that it's going to start at this face, and it's going to remove it, and it's going to move into the part and keep moving until it hits other faces. And when it hits those other faces, it will come back 2 millimeters and leave a shell. So we're done with the shell, so we click check, and there it is. So that's what it did. Starts at that face and then pushes its way to other surfaces, and now we have a part that is everywhere you look 2 millimeters thick. Okay, now next is to look at this part using a section view. Section views are very powerful in engineering because they give a lot of good information about how the part is designed. So they ask for a trimetric view. You can use any view you want. And so I'll put it in similar orientation that they have there. Property Manager under, so click Section View. That's in the View toolbar. That is right there. So once I click it, notice it's now grayed out. That's because the view is being controlled by this, which is the Section View control. And we're clicking on top for Section 1. So you see these three choices: front, top, and right. So click on top. And now you think, well, I can't see a thing. Well, that's because this little handle needs to be dragged or drug up. So as I drag that handle up, you can see the cross-section of the part all the way through the part. And so this gives the engineer a lot of information about how that part will interact with other parts. Okay, and if you're happy with that section, you would click the green check. I'll follow the instructions here. And so of course it's leaving it in the section view. If you want to get out of section view, see how it's gray? Just click it. Now we have the part back. And it suggests we save. That's a good idea. Okay, editing features. So parametric design means that you design a part according to parameters. And this is different than traditional two-dimensional CAD or any other kind of CAD that is direct modeling. So all the dimensions we entered can be changed, and it will redesign the part based on those changes. That's when you can do that. That's called parametric modeling. And this is a very powerful feature because engineers design something and then very soon they realize they need to change something. So this prevents you from having to redraw the whole part. You just change the feature and the computer redraws the part for you. So we're going to do some changes. We're going to increase the depth. We're going to change the type of fillets or the dimensions of them. And we're going to recreate some of the fillets. Okay, so editing the base features. We can skip that. So it asks us to double click the boss extrude in the feature manager tree. So this is our design tree. This is all of the things that we've done. Remember, we started with the base, then we did the boss, then we did the cut, then we did those fillets, that smaller fillets, and the shell. And it does these in order, and that order is actually important, as we'll see. So we're going to double click this one. So this is kind of a quick way of editing. Just double click the feature, and now those dimensions that you entered before are accessible right here. You don't have to go into the sketch or into the controls. It wants us to change the 30 to a 50. So I click that and 50, enter, and there it is. It's redesigned the part just by changing one number. In traditional two-dimensional CAD or even regular traditional solid modeling, that could be a lot of work to just do that one change. So now we're going to click rebuild. Rebuild is a good command to see if the model is still valid based on the changes that you made. And it is. It did not give me an error. Save. Okay. Now we're going to change the type of fillets. So originally we had 5mm fillets for all of these features. It wants us to change the face fillets, first to get rid of them, change the sides to 10, and then we're going to redo the face later. Okay, so we're going to right click on the fillet one and edit feature. So this is something we do a lot when you want to edit something. So I'm on fillet one, I'm right clicking, and then I go here to edit feature. So the commands that are typically used on this right click are this one most of all, sometimes delete, suppress you'll use later, and hide you'll use later. And most of the other ones we don't use much. So there we are, edit feature, left click. Okay, and now it brought up that same fillet control that we had before. And you can see it has, this is a small window, but there's more information in it. I'm going to click the little scroll up and scroll down. Here's face 1, and there's the edges around the side. So let's see, scroll down and right click face 1 and hit delete. There it is. Right click on that, delete. And now we've just have the edges on the side. We want to change the radius of those to 10. Okay, so let's do that. 10, enter, and then the green check. So fantastic. So this is the beauty of parametric modeling, that it has redesigned the part for us just by a few choices. If this were traditional CAD, that could have taken me 10 minutes. All right, let's go recreate the face fillets. Okay, now this is showing the effect of order on your parts. So what it's asking us to do is place the pointer over the rollback bar. That's right here. So that's the little blue bar at the bottom. Wherever the blue bar is where new features will be added. And it wants us to undo the shell feature because we want to put the fillet feature before it. And I'll explain why later. So if I drag that up, that's what it's asking me to do. Now you see the shell is grayed out. It's in a sense suppressed. It hasn't forgotten about it completely, but it is not using it to create the geometry. And if I look at the back, it's solid. Okay, so I can easily get it back by just dragging that back down. Now it is shelled, and now it is hollow. Okay, so we'll drag it back up. So we've done this step. And the reason for doing this is we want to add a fillet before the shell feature. This is not the only way to do it, but it's a good way to do it. So by putting the blue bar here, that's where the new feature will be added, and then the part will be shelled. And I'll show the difference later. So click fillet. All right. And click the front face of the model again. There, it's now selected in the blue box. And we want a radius of 5 there. Okay, so 5, enter. And we're good, so click the green or enter. And now we bring the shell back down. Okay, so let me show you the difference between the effect of order. And the best way to see it is by doing a cross section. So back to section view. You don't have to do this with me, but I want to show you why the order matters. So you can see right now, this is what you might think is logical. The shell feature is working to keep the thickness of the part the same right through that radius, for example, right there. Let me leave this on, so I'm going to hit the green check. We can undo it later. I'm going to take this fillet feature and move it. So I'm just left clicking on it and I'm dragging it so that the little arrow there is below the shell. And look at the different geometry that you get. So let's think why that's true. Let me eliminate the fillet by dragging up. So if you do this fillet, the outer borders, this fillet, the top, and then you shell, you will get this shape with sharp corners there and a sharp corner there. If you then add the fillet after the fact, it will fill in that right there, but it will leave the sharp corner because you've already done the shell in a prior step. So that is different than doing the shell after the step. Now it does the fillet first, then it shells it. So order does matter when you do the CAD work. Okay, So now I'm going to get rid of the section view by clicking that. Okay. Let's see, we're done with all that. And the last thing is to change its appearance. So you can see we have a kind of a chrome look here. It wants us to click Shade in the View toolbar. I think we're already there. Well, we've got these little lines. Those are not realistic. They're helpful for viewing it, but that's more what it would actually look like. I'm going to hit F to put it in the middle of my model. Of course, this is a reflection. It's somewhat helpful to show you the backside. It's mostly to make it look real. And we want to select Real View Graphics in the View toolbar. This may be a little hard to find. It's under here, and you can see it is already selected. It's boxed, so I don't want to click it again because that would undo it. So we do have Real View Graphics on. And now we want to select the part name at the top of the design tree. The reason for doing this, we're about to change the appearance, and it's going to want to know, or it needs to know, what portions of the part do you want to change. If you want to do everything in the part, then select the whole part. So that's what clicking up there and selecting that will do. Now it wants us to click Edit Material on the Standard toolbar. And that may or may not be directly visible on yours, and we may need to bring up a new toolbar. So let's do that. So hover your mouse over the empty space and right click. This brings up all of the toolbars that SolidWorks can do. So we have a few selected already. You can see the Motion Manager. We won't use that, but that's down here at the bottom left. We have the Task Pane. I believe that's the one that would be behind here. And the Heads Up toolbar, that's the one here. So we want to select the Standard toolbar. Okay, so it's right there. And it put it right here. And so to find the Edit Material icon, I have to click the little arrow. And there it is, Edit Material. Okay, I'm going to drag this over to the right so we can see what we're doing. Put it right there. It wants us to use chrome stainless steel. So scrolling here, these are the steels, and it's already opened. If yours didn't open, you might have gotten that. So you'd say SolidWorks Material, Steel, and Chrome Stainless Steel. And then I'm going to drag this up so I can click the button, click Apply, and you can see now we have a chrome stainless steel appearance. If you want to try different materials, you're welcome to do so. Here's a cast steel. Apply. Has a rough appearance from the mold, making that galvanized steel. That looks like a tin roof. A lot of these are kind of just colors, so if you want some cool looking ones, go to the coppers. So there's beryllium copper and regular copper and so on. But I'll take it back to chrome stainless. Okay, and we'll close that. And that is this part of the tutorial.